I think they could win or lose that game.
Well, that's the only two options.
Oh, there are ties in the regular season, my
I'll tell
friend.
you what, people, they come into this show and they hear the most cutting edge.
This is why you tune in to Sports Love. Okay, Jaguars, win or lose?
Hey, I bet you they're going to do 1 or 2.
Yeah, probably. 50-50 shot.
Welcome into Sports Bluff, everyone. I'm your host, Ryan Lambert. Alongside me, my co-host, Tristan Bunn. This is the show where we can take breaks as long as we want because we don't have sponsors yet. We are back in it for the 2024 season. I think you can feel it in the air. We're about to enter the month with the first football game played, which will be a college football game, but hey, it's football. That's all I care about. There's pigskins in the air. You can feel it. All the YouTube channels are coming back. We're coming back. I know everybody's on the edge of their seat waiting. The biggest story, though, has to be Joe Burrow's hair, right?
Undoubtedly the biggest thing to happen the entire offseason. Definitely the thing I was most blindsided by.
It's like he was training to be a double in 8 Mile. You know? It's
yes.
like that's kind of what it was. I thought, well, maybe Joe Burrow's went a different path. He, maybe a little too beaten up in the quarterback world, so he went to acting and want to be Slim Shady's stunt double. I don't know.
Here's my question about that, and I have been dying to ask you this. First off, welcome back. Good to see you. Hope you enjoyed the off time. July, kind of the one period we get to settle down, and now we are back full force taking you through the 2024 season. Did he, Joe Burrow, do this intentionally? Does he think it looks good, or is he trolling?
Oh, it's got to be a troll, man.
I mean,
have you seen even the faces he makes? Like, it's almost a giggling, laughing face when he takes a picture. He's like,
right.
You guys are taking a picture of this? I know you are, because this is the biggest story in the offseason right now.
That's 100% right. And I don't blame the guy for shaving it. I understand. I made that, long hair. I shaved it once too. It was a mistake, but every guy's kind of been there where they say, screw it, I'm shaving it. So I don't blame him for doing that. Dyeing it might be taking it a step too far.
A lot of times those guys do that because they just don't want to afford, or they can't afford, or don't want to afford having a haircut. Joe Burrow's a multimillionaire. He has no excuse to do this other than publicity. That's it. That aside, let's talk real football. Jordan Love gets paid. The Packers signed Jordan Love to a 4-year, $220 million deal with $160.3 million guaranteed and a $75 million signing bonus. He also has $100.8 million guaranteed at signing. We see quarterbacks cashing in the bag all the time, and this is what Jordan Love's done. We anticipated it happening. I can argue that he is well deserved of that. What do you think? Do you think this is the right move by Green Bay?
I actually do think this is the right move by Green Bay. We could have a discussion about the absurdity of quarterback pay, the absurdity of every next person up having to go to the top of the charts. Me and you have talked about that many times. We'll probably talk about that at some point in this episode. That's absurd. I don't know why we can't treat it like a normal market. Hey, you're probably about the 6th best. You're going to get paid about the 6th best. Regardless, that's a topic for another day. We can talk till we're blue in the face. Nothing's changing there. We knew a contract was probably imminent regarding Jordan Love because he was running out of time. I know he wanted to get re-signed before this season because he didn't want to obviously get injured or play bad. I know Green Bay wanted to sign him because if he goes out there and plays fantastic, then it was going to cost them more money down the line. The bottom line for me is, if you watch the last half of the 2023 season, Jordan Love looks like one of the most promising quarterbacks in the NFL. And it's such a crazy ride because it really started rocky. Like, none of us knew what to expect. We thought maybe he would be solid. And it started out, bumpy and even bad at times. And there was a point close to midway in the season where it looked like Jordan Love might be one and done in Green Bay. They missed. Hey, you can't do it. You can't go from Favre to Rodgers to another one. That's okay. Go get another guy. And then magically he turned it on. Matt LaFleur literally said he took the training wheels off. He stopped trying to manage him and said, no, just go run the offense. It's yours. Take control. And he did. And you hear this from a lot of people, but it's true. He looked like Aaron Rodgers. A lot of plays out there. The last 8 games of the regular season, 18 touchdowns, 1 interception. Obviously, the playoff game against Dallas where he went and lit them up. And then the playoff game against San Francisco, he played really, really well. Everyone remembers that last interception, which was obviously boneheaded, but he'd never been in that situation before, and he had played good up until that point. You would take Jordan Love over a lot of starting quarterbacks in the league right now, and with Matt LaFleur, it should only get better. I think this was a good move to jump ahead of it because the talent is there.
Yeah, LaFleur went over to the genie and said, my third and final wish, I want 3 more wishes, so give me that
Right.
next quarterback, and it was granted to him. You mentioned taking Jordan Love over a lot of quarterbacks in the league, and that brings me to a guy I do want to talk about briefly here. We don't have it in the script today, but I'm just throwing this in because the way quarterback markets work so far is they just leapfrog, right? So one gets paid, the next gets paid more, the next gets paid more. We'll talk about another one here in a second who got paid more. The one I'm talking about is yet to be paid, Dak Prescott, right? Me personally, the upside of Jordan Love makes me want Jordan Love more than Dak.
Yes.
But here's the problem. We know Dak's going to get paid more. Like, he's just going to get a bigger contract, a bigger, better contract, even than Tua, who we'll talk about in a second, because that's just how this quarterback market's working right now. And it's bleeding over to the receiver market because you have Justin Jefferson who got paid. Now CeeDee Lamb wants that kind of money, and he doesn't deserve it. What this is just, it's becoming like fake money in a way. It's just, same thing with like cap space and everything. It's all just made up and it's all bids. There's no limits on anything. And now you have these guys that are really, honestly, maybe even outside the top 8 quarterbacks getting paid like, number 1, number 2 in the entire league. So Dak's going to come get money like he's the 3rd best quarterback in the league. And we know for a fact that that's not true. So what's going to come to a head? Like, how is this going to shake out in the end? Is this ever going to be fixed, or are we just going to keep writing blank checks to these quarterbacks no matter how good they really are on paper statistically and what they do for their team? Because Jordan Love has done more for the Packers last year than Dak did for the Cowboys.
100%. Now, you could say, well, Dak Prescott has proven it earlier in his career. He's a good quarterback. Okay, yeah, but even take the age part away from it, say they were the same age, I would still want Jordan Love over Dak Prescott just because he plays better. Like,
he does.
He has more upside. His physical ability is better.
Pocket awareness is better.
Yeah, he literally looks like Aaron Rodgers out there. And Dak obviously had his moments. I think Dak was his best when he was a little bit younger and more mobile.
Before the injury, maybe. And maybe, I don't know how much that plays into it. A lot of people saying Dak chokes in the playoffs is a fake narrative. Maybe it is to a degree, but it's also true that he does choke in some playoff games. Not all on him, obviously, and we've talked about that. But what stops this quarterback market thing? I would think the thing that would stop it would be a team finally putting their foot down and saying, no, sorry, we're not doing it. We're not paying you more than Patrick Mahomes. But here's the thing. One, Minnesota did that. Because me and you talk about that, like, we want a team to do that. Minnesota did that to Kirk Cousins. They said, no, we're not paying you more than that. And he left and got paid by Atlanta. So another team did it. The same would apply to Dak Prescott, I think. If Dallas, which if I was Dallas, I would not pay Dak Prescott a giant contract. I just wouldn't. Maybe I'm wrong. Sorry. I could not do it at this point. I would rather go get someone from the draft and roll the dice on him. So I would say, no, Dak, we're not paying you. But the problem is that doesn't stop it because one of these teams, desperate for a quarterback in free agency, is going to go and pay him. So I don't know how this stops. It's just like the real estate market, right? Like during the pandemic, we were in a seller's market. The sellers could just demand what they wanted for their house. People were paying well over asking. And, if somebody didn't make a good offer, they would move to the next. And well, that's how it is in the quarterback world, right? Now, since then, interest rates have gone back up, and now they've kind of settled up a little bit, and it's more balanced out to an even, close to even buyer-seller market. Something like that has to happen. So how does that happen in the quarterback world? You have to increase the number of good quarterbacks in the league. That's it. That's the only way you can do it. You have to have a team. Yeah. You have to have a team, or all 32 teams have enough quarterbacks that are startable and good enough for them not to go waste the extra money on a quote-unquote top-tier quarterback, which you could argue Dak's not even one of those. Mm-hmm. But that's what's going to have to happen. And until that happens, we're going to keep seeing these blank checks just being handed to these quarterbacks and say, hey, we got to have you because without you, we are doomed.
And that's a great point. It's easy to say, no, we don't need you. We're not going to pay that when we have a quarterback. But if you're a team like, I know they have Bryce Young, but just say Carolina, like, come on. Like, if Carolina could get Dak Prescott, or they could get Jordan Love or Baker Mayfield, one of these teams, they would like that. That would be a big upgrade on their team. Tennessee, not knowing what's going to happen with Will Levis. These teams that are desperate and in a bad situation, when you don't have one, you become more desperate. However, I think that makes your organization bad, because we've seen you can win games, you can make playoff runs with an average quarterback. You're not going to win a Super Bowl, obviously. You got to have a really good quarterback to win a Super Bowl, I think. But then you look at what San Francisco's done with Brock Purdy. Obviously, he's very good, but it's that trade-off. We're going to see what he gets paid probably sometime this season. It's going to be kind of interesting to see, but I kind of agree with you. As long as there's, a limited amount of quarterbacks that can really control a franchise and take you to the future, then we're going to just see this happen over and over again. Because if you believe that guy can win you Super Bowls, then you will write him a blank check because he's worth it. Before we move on to the next topic, last question for you. What do you think expectations should be given this contract for Jordan Love this year? Do you think it's another playoff run? Like, if he matched last year, NFL division or NFC divisional round and out, you think they'd be happy?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If that can happen again. But the NFC's changed a little bit, right? The face of the NFC is not like it was last year.
Yeah.
I think the NFC's gotten better through this offseason, so there's that to battle. But I don't think it's out of the realm of expectation to ask Jordan Love to get them back to the divisional or the playoff, even a wild card. I would be even happy with that and say, hey, that was money well spent, because without him, we know that we wouldn't be here in the first place.
Yeah, and I think you also, even more so, obviously, I think Green Bay is good enough to make the playoffs and probably win a playoff game, and we'll talk about them at some point through our preseason predictions. I believe you want to see a full season of what the last 8 games of 2023 were. It's like, let's not go through rough patches. Let's look like a top-tier quarterback for 17 games.
The former Alabama boy got paid, Tristan. Tua Tagovailoa got his bags. He put them in his car. He's driving off. He's hopefully going to go pay for some more jiu-jitsu lessons to stay safe this season coming up and maybe invest in a bubble suit. 4-year, $212.4 million deal with $167.1 million guaranteed, $42 million signing bonus, and $93.1 million guaranteed at signing. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked you about Green Bay. Did the Dolphins make a good choice, or did they make a mistake?
I think it's a mistake.
Okay.
This goes back to the bigger contract, and I don't want to repeat ourselves. I understand supply and demand. I don't think Tua Tagovailoa is worth $53 million a year, or whatever you want to say. $93 million guaranteed at sign, and that's paid. The earliest out for the Dolphins in this contract, potential out, 2027, 3-year, $152.1 million with a $19 million dead cap hit. So that's the earliest.
I think this makes him like the third highest paid quarterback, right? Technically.
Yeah, it might be behind Love now. He's somewhere in the top 5. As you said, it's leapfrog. You just constantly leapfrogging the other.
That's all it is.
One of the questions surrounding Tua and him getting paid is, would another quarterback look this good in this system? So if you take someone like Jordan Love and put him in this system with Mike McDaniel, does he look better than Tua? If you take someone like Dak Prescott and put him in this situation, Trevor Lawrence in this situation, I think that's one of the things some people wonder is, does this system excel because of Tua, or is Tua excelling because of the system? Because if you look at his numbers last season, 4,624 yards, 29 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, an 11-6 record. But the same thing seems to happen with the Dolphins the past 2 years. They kind of start hot, look good. They're high-flying offense, but when they have to go and play on the road or play good teams or play in the cold, they collapse. And at the bottom line, at the end of the day, for me, Tua looked bad in the Kansas City game. Oh, I understand it was really cold. I'm sorry, you play in the AFC. You better get used to throwing the ball in the cold. If you want to win Super Bowls, particularly going through the AFC, you have to win in cold weather. That is football in January. Jordan Love was able to look good in the postseason. I know he didn't have to go to Kansas City, but by the way, Jordan Love beat Kansas City in the regular season. Tua couldn't even do that. They lost in Germany. So I haven't seen enough from Tua for me to give him this contract. I've seen Tua running a system successfully, but once you give Tua this contract, you're not going to get to have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Devon Achane and all these speedy weapons all over the place. So it's kind of a similar debate as we talk about Brock Purdy. How is he going to look once he starts to lose some of these weapons? I think right now you say, yeah, let's lock up the quarterback. But in a few years, when the roster is a little bit more depleted, and it's depleted now on defense, by the way, I don't know if Tua looks as good as he has these last season. And it's not like he looked spectacular last season. He looked good. So I don't think he warranted this contract, but I understand that the Dolphins thought they were in a tough situation.
I'm actually going to disagree with you a little bit here. I do think he deserves this contract, and it goes back to kind of what I was saying before, right, with the supply and demand, because if Miami doesn't pay him, they don't have a lot of options to turn to. Tua is a successful quarterback. He is a good quarterback. He's within the top 10. I think last year he finished like 10 QBR overall, if I'm not mistaken. And so I think he warrants this money solely for the fact that he is able to win. Now, my Buffalo Bills own Miami, and we'll talk about that later. But I think that the days of Tua playing risky are over, right? So 2022, he dealt with the injuries. 2023, he found a way to stay healthy all year. There's still teams that constantly beat Miami, and Miami gets down to those close games. They usually start out heavy. They go down to the wire. Toward the end of the year, it gets rough, and the Bills come back and beat them again, or the Patriots may turn around and beat whoever it is. They find these ways to lose the games they're supposed to win. And with Tua, there's been weapons that have been added in this offseason that make them a very talented team, but even more talented than they were last year. The time for him to earn his money and earn the idea that they paid him what he was worth is now. So if he doesn't put up, then you can say they made a mistake. But as of right now, before the season starts, brother, you had no other way to go. You had to pay the man. I don't think it's a mistake.
Why not just hold out, though? Why not just wait and say, well, we'll see after the season? Because I know Tua would have pitched a fit, but I don't think he was going to hold out.
Who would you rather have, Dak or Tua?
Oh, Dak.
Really?
I think
you'd rather have Dak in this offensive scheme.
Yes.
I don't know. I think Tua works perfectly for this scheme, and I think he's just going to keep getting better.
Well, I think he works perfectly for the scheme because the scheme is tailored to his talents. Like, that's what good coaches tailor their scheme to the personnel, to the players they have. I think that's what Mike McDaniel has done. Tua is a great short ball thrower. He gets the ball out quick. He's accurate. That's what they utilize. But that is so dependent on speed. And when you lose that speed, I know we've still got Hill and Waddle this year, or when you're in cold games, like in Kansas City, Tyreek Hill was literally getting bullied. I mean, he was getting bullied off the line. He couldn't do anything. And we've seen Tua just not do anything in the playoffs. It's not even that he's just awful, but he doesn't get anything going for his team. And that's the bottom line to me. When you're paying someone $54, $55 million a year, they have to be a difference maker. I can't pay someone who's just solid and running an offense $55 million a year. I could pay someone like that 40. Now, I know Tua wouldn't accept that, but I would have a hard time sleeping at night because you're going to have Tua show that he can win multiple playoff games to feel justified in signing this contract. And when the AFC is so stacked at quarterback, think about even the young ones like CJ Stroud, I'm worried that he's going to just fall behind the race.
Yeah, I mean, you make valid points, right? But I think at this point in time, because if they didn't pay him, I understand the whole holdout thing, and they could have gone that route. But at the end of the day, that's just bad blood because they know that eventually they're gonna. So if they held out, then what, right? Like, what's the next move then?
If you hold out, you hold out and see how this season goes, and if he.
But then what?
Well, it depends on how he plays. I mean, if he
puts up a season as good as last year, you still have to pay him, right?
Well, you don't have to, but to me, it boils down more to beating good teams and playoff success because they look good against bad teams, but they look mediocre against good teams.
Yeah. So say he repeats, say they held out. He repeats what he did last season this year in 2024, the end of this season, beginning of 2025. Would you be more okay with them paying him then?
No, I'd be less okay.
Okay.
Personally.
But I think it's just kicking the can down the road, right? I think the outcome would have been the same either which way, right? So it's
Maybe.
We pay him now or we pay him next year. It doesn't matter because we're going to eventually keep him. Because
if that's what you think, then you pay him now.
Because the other option is where are you going to go get at the draft? Because we know that the quarterback draft class this year is not looking too great.
That's true.
So like, who are we going to turn to? So now we get to the end of 2024 and we say, well, we made Tua hold out. Well, now he's
going to cost us
pissy.
more.
Yeah, and now he's just going to demand a higher number after that cash symbol. So
right.
I don't disagree with him paying him now.
Yeah, I see it from that standpoint. And again, we don't have anyone doing what I'm saying, so it's hard to know if it would work or not because the teams don't do it.
Well, I'm also taking all these stats you just gave me, and I'm just throwing them over this shoulder right
here.
Yeah,
you said
because it just doesn't matter.
Bye-bye.
We have to. This is all business right now. It doesn't matter. It matters some. He's a sufficient quarterback. He can get the job done. And that's who they have to pay right now.
Yeah, and you can't win games in the AFC without a quarterback, to back up your point. You have to have at least a good quarterback if you want to win games in the AFC. So I understand it. I think it's probably going to end up being a mistake, but they are kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. I get it. You're right there. This is why GMs and these teams get paid, these people get paid a lot of money, because these are not black and white decisions. They're very difficult.
Well, Tristan, it's that time of year again. It's Christmas in July. It's my favorite time of year. We get to make our predictions for over, under on win totals for every team in the NFL. We're going to go each conference, each division, week by week. Today, we're going to start off with my favorite division because my team is in it, the AFC East. Let's start out and talk about droughts, because when you hear the word drought, you think the New York Jets. It's a 13-year playoff drought, Tristan. That's the longest across the top 4 major sports in North America. Isn't that crazy?
Isn't that crazy?
They haven't won a Super Bowl since 1969.
Namath.
Whew. What a team. What a team. We know the big headline, right? We know that Aaron Rodgers is back. 9.5. 9.5 is what they're at right now. That's the opening line. At least I think that's what they opened with.
That's
9.5. I don't think it's changed like my Bills did. But what when you look at this, by the way, kind of funny that the Sunday night football opener again is anyway.
Right.
Well, let's just not hope it repeats. But I'm just saying 50% chance that it happens again.
The NFL literally scheduled the Jets on like 6 primetime games again because they're like, we're trying again.
Yeah, let's just double down.
How about
have a 50% chance. Right. Well, let's talk about learning our lesson. 9.5. I think last year you had them going over. I know I did.
I'm not sure exactly, but I think last year, I didn't think they'd be great. I thought they would make the playoffs last year, though. I did. I thought they would squeak into a wild card.
I'm pretty sure I had them going over, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong, but let's talk about this year. 9.5. Where do you have them?
I think the Jets at 9.5. Usually Vegas has things pretty close. I kind of think this is preposterous. I think this is absolutely insane. I think Vegas is doing what the NFL did. I think they got spanked in front of everybody, and they're pulling up their pants, and they're saying, let's do it again. The Jets are going under. Okay, absolutely, 100% hammer the under. Absolutely hammer it. Because first off, let's just take a look at how bad this Jets team was last year. Here's a graphic. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers got hurt after 4 snaps. Ryan, the offense, 29th in points per game. 32nd, that's last, by the way, in yards per game. Pass yards, 30th. Rush yards, 23rd. You go to the other side, the defense was a little bit better, 12th in points per game, 3rd in yards per game allowed, 2nd in pass yards. They were good at shutting down the pass, not so good at the run, 25th. They finished 7-10 and missed the playoffs. So I know what you're saying. I already know your argument. Your argument's going to be, but Tristan, they went 7-10 last year with Zach Wilson. How can Aaron Rodgers not add 3 wins? And that is because he's 40 years old coming off an Achilles injury. Is there a chance the Jets win 10 games? Yes, there is a chance. There is a possibility, but I do not find it likely. I'm not certain Aaron Rodgers is going to play 17 games. Matter of fact, I'm certain he's not going to play 17 games. And it's not like he was coming off an MVP season and injured his Achilles. He was coming off one of the worst seasons of his career. It was looking like the decline. He had a win or get in game against Detroit and lost. Then he gets injured 4 snaps into last year when all of the hype was around him, and it just kind of collapsed. So now you're telling me a 40-year-old's going to come back off an Achilles with a kind of shoddy offensive line and win 10 games in the AFC? I think that is genuine crazy talk. I think people are hoping Aaron Rodgers comes out there and looks like he did 4 years ago, and I just don't expect that to happen. I wouldn't be shocked if it does, but I can't expect it.
Is it my turn?
Go ahead.
All right. Well, you're insane, and I'll tell you why. The Jets are going over, and look,
you're doing it.
No, well, look, I am, because listen, I'm not about to hype them up, okay? I just want you to know that I'm not going to hype the Jets up.
You know,
because
10 wins is a lot.
10 wins is a lot. However, a lot of this, and I'll go ahead and say this is, obviously you have to say this. It's predicated on a lot of old guys not getting hurt.
Exactly.
Because you also got Mr. Mike Williams coming in, and if you've known Mike Williams, if you've had him in fantasy ever, it's been rare a season where he's played all the way through all 16, 17, 18 games.
It won't happen.
Rarely happens, right? So we already know that Mike Williams is going to have a couple games where he's not playing. However, the right side of that column that you just pulled up, there was a lot of good numbers there. This defense can carry the team a long way. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have to play to the Aaron Rodgers of 2020 or 2021. Aaron Rodgers, all he has to do is play 60 to 70%, and that's all he needs. A 60 to 70% Aaron Rodgers is still 2 times better than a Zach Wilson or whoever else that the Jets ran at quarterback last year. You got to remember that they played tight games. They beat the Bills the night that Aaron Rodgers went down in overtime. Like, it was a rough season last year for the Jets. There's no doubt about it. What you got to know, though, is Aaron Rodgers is coming back this year, and I think he's got at least one more good season left in him, and I think that he's going to make a difference. When you look at this schedule, the first opener is rough. It's, San Francisco. That probably won't win that. I get that, okay? But they're going to go on a winning streak after that, because they have Tennessee, New England, Denver, Minnesota, and then Buffalo. Buffalo is, it's going to be a toss-up. This schedule, when you look at it, it's a very winnable schedule on any given Sunday, Monday, or Thursday. There's not a whole lot of scary games in this schedule right here. So I am going to take the over, because I think they can pull out 10 wins as long as Aaron Rodgers stays healthy. And I know when you predicate a prediction on somebody being healthy, you have to assume they're healthy, right? We cannot say that Aaron Rodgers likely won't make it through the season.
But assuming he's healthy after an Achilles at his age is a big assumption. Like, that's way more of an assumption than saying, but I think the Bills are going to be good. Obviously assuming Josh Allen's healthy.
All I need is 60 to 7%, though. I don't need him to play 100%.
But you still need him to play every game.
But you also got to think Breece Hall's back, too.
Breece Hall was there a lot of last year, though, and they still weren't able to run the ball because the offensive line is so bad. And here's the problem for me. Even if Aaron Rodgers is back and healthy and good, how do I trust this offensive line to hold up? They added Tyron Smith. Well, he's literally hurt every single game of his career. He hardly ever plays. They drafted Fashanu from Penn State. That's great. He's a rookie, but they're depending on a lot of guys on this offensive line to stay healthy. Guys that in the past have not stayed healthy. So I think we're in the same boat as last year. They've tried to address the offensive line, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. Even if Aaron Rodgers hadn't gotten hurt in week 1 last year, he wouldn't have made it all season the way that line was playing. No quarterback could have survived that. And I'm just not sure they've been able to address the underlying issue.
Yeah, but you're saying that the Jets went into this offseason and said, hey, we're just not going to do anything about the offensive line?
No, I think they did what they could, but they added a bunch of guys who are prone to injuries.
But not only did they add, but they worked on this this is like topic number 1 in off-season workouts is fix this O-line. For the love of God, fix this O-line, especially since Aaron Rodgers is coming back. I think once Aaron Rodgers went down, man, I know that a lot of people may not completely support this idea, but when you take that breath out of the team, it's hard to re-catch that breath and fill your lungs back up again. So I think a lot of these players aren't playing 100% anyway because they're like, oh, crap, well, Aaron Rodgers is down. This is literally the entire world was talking about Aaron Rodgers switching over to the Jets and making the Jets a freaking Super Bowl team. He even said it. He said, I'm going to be the guy that makes the Jets a Super Bowl winning team since 1969. He said those words. So I would lean to the idea that he still means it, and he's going to try his best to get him there.
But now, even if that's the case, he can only do so much. It's such a team sport. You've got a left tackle and a right guard who are unable to stay healthy. The odds that either of those guys play 17 games is astronomical. So even if only one of them got hurt and you're plugging in Fashanu, assuming you weren't plugging him in somewhere else, like it's such a hodgepodge of guys that you're going to have to try to survive the season with. I don't think they've got the pieces to protect him.
I'm almost just going to accept that and move on that you're right. But the one thing that we aren't really talking about much is this defense. The defense was really good last year, and it hopefully has only gotten better. Defenses, they haven't really changed anything on defense as far as like players leaving or anything. They still have Sauce. They still have all their top guys. So look at the quarterbacks they have to play through this year. There's not a lot of quarterbacks that can match this defense and go toe-to-toe with them.
Okay.
There's some.
I agree. I agree that the defense is good. I mean, we talked about it. They were 12th in pass points per game. They were second best in pass yards, third best in yards per game. They just struggled a little bit in run defense. But here's the thing.
And that's while they're on the field constantly.
Correct. Okay, so that's true. They were good last year, and they were also good in 2022. But I think, I'm not saying they won't be good. I think it might be a little bit of a stretch to say they're going to be that good again, because the Jets defense has kind of carried this team for 2 years in a row. Like, can we trust that defense is going to come back and be just as good? Maybe, but I'm not even 100% sure that's going to happen. I mean, I know on paper it looks like they will, but it's a lot to ask for people to come out and deliver yet again. So just say the defense takes a mild step back, not even a big one, just like a minor step back. That could drastically affect the outcome of this team. That could drastically affect the number of games they win. So I'm actually surprised you're sold. I'm rooting for him. I love Aaron Rodgers. I really would love to see him play good again. But the injury, the age, the history, and last point, just the overall dysfunction for the Jets. Nathaniel Hackett staying as offensive coordinator when they literally tried to get rid of him but couldn't because Aaron Rodgers didn't want him to because they like throwing darts together. Like, it's just a team that doesn't really have a leader. I think Robert Saleh is probably out after this year. All I get from the Jets are dysfunctional vibes, and dysfunctional teams usually don't win 10 games. Unless Aaron Rodgers comes in there like Superman and puts this team on his shoulders and carries them, it's not happening. Maybe you think that's what's going to happen. I don't.
I don't know about Superman, but I think he could be a good, second. Maybe he could be a Robin. If he could be a Robin, then I think we're good. Like I said, 60 to 70% with a top-tier defense. That's all you need to equal success. I think the Jets go over. This is probably our biggest disagreement in the AFC East, I would imagine, I hope. So let's move on to our next team. The New England Patriots open up at a measly 4.5. The lowest opening win total prediction or win total since 1991. Whew, that's rough.
Pretty bad.
4.5 is a very low total, but when you look at this roster and you look at the schedule, I don't see many more wins than that. What say you?
Yeah, this is a bet. Would I be shocked if they win 5 games? No, but
yeah.
Again, we're talking about you have to make a binary prediction over or under. If I had to
every one of their team has healthy people, right? So that's what we have to predict it on.
Of course. I kind of disagree with you there because we know there's going to be injuries. There's always injuries. So you kind of have to look at depth of roster.
There's going to be injuries, right? But we can't say on any given Sunday that, Tua's not going to be playing, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. There's going to be injuries, of course, but you just don't know who and how big of an impact.
Yeah, and that makes it even easier because they don't have a Tua. So it's not going to matter. Either way, even if they did, they're probably going under. I think under. Absolutely, I would hammer it. If they win 5 games, I'm not shocked, but I think they're probably going to win right at 4 because, one, let's just be honest about this. No one knows if Gerard Mayo is a good football coach. No one knows. He might be. We don't know.
Yeah, I'd even be willing to bet that he's not a good football coach.
If I had to bet, I would bet he's not just because the odds are that he's not, but I don't know.
So not only that, but you have a rookie quarterback, right, that we don't know much about, that was hammered in this, before the draft, right? Like everybody was just on him, and We don't know what he's going to turn out to be.
I don't think he's going to be the starter.
Well, at some point, I think we both agree he will be this year. I think he'll overtake that from Brissett at some point.
I don't know.
But whether he does or not, the closest comparison we have to a rookie quarterback being, great and having to completely change the face of a team would be the Texans with C.J. Stroud. And we know for a fact that Drake May is not C.J. Stroud.
Correct. And they also don't have, I assume, the coach that the Texans have and the roster, because the Texans did have a solid roster, and C.J. Stroud is a generational talent. I wasn't as low on Drake May as a lot of people seem to start being, but he is a project. Drake May, to me, probably needs to sit a year or two. Like, he's more in that Jordan Love vein. He's got to learn. I think, because also, if you put him out there this year, you're going to destroy his confidence. I think you said, he's going to start sometime. He probably will start because that's how franchises are. The fans get angry and they want him to start. But if we were being realistic and saying, we're not listening to fans, we're not listening to media, our jobs are safe, we're going to make the best decision. The best decision would be to let Brissett play the whole year. Because if we send Drake May out there and it goes very badly and we're losing and he's getting beat up, we're going to have a Bryce Young situation where his career is probably ruined.
Or Mac Jones.
Exactly right. Granted, he didn't have a lot of help at the coordinator position, but after that year, he was done.
Yeah.
It ruined him.
Yeah, we don't know, like you said, we don't know what Mayo's going to be. Again, if I was a betting man, I would say that he's probably not going to be a super successful head coach, just from what I've heard about him and how he's really just trying to be a Belichick 2.0.
Well, I mean, he comes from the Belichick family, the Belichick tree. That's what was so weird to me. It's like, you're going to fire Bill Belichick and then you're going to hire inside the building and try to kind of
when you make a blood oath, Tristan, you have to keep it. Like,
good point.
That's what it is.
Robert Kraft and Gerard Mayo were cutting palms at midnight.
Right. And so, comparing Drake May to C.J. Stroud, right? Like, that doesn't happen. That C.J. Stroud's probably the best rookie we've ever seen in NFL, maybe.
One of.
It's phenomenal what he's accomplished and what he continues to. And D'Amico Ryan, same thing, right? It's rare that you see a defensive coordinator go to be a head coach in an offensive league and be that good. But he's done it, and so I haven't seen anything that Mayo's done to wow me in the offseason as far as surrounding himself with like really good coordinators or anything like that. I know they got some new help in there, but when you look at the schedule, man, it's daunting.
It's bad.
And when you look at this roster, it's depleted.
Well, the roster's awful.
And they are deficient in every category, period. 4.5 is a stretch. I looked through this before our show. I struggle.
Who are they beating?
Tell me. That's what I'm waiting on. Like,
obviously, they're going to win a couple games they should.
Right. And I imagine it's probably going to be one of these, like the Jets, they play twice. They're not going to, Miami's going to sweep them, as long as Tua is healthy. Buffalo will probably sweep them.
Maybe you beat the Titans. I doubt it.
Arizona, maybe Arizona, but you're also at Arizona, so that's, I don't know. And then maybe the Colts slip up, maybe, possibly.
Maybe, but I think Shane Steichen. I'm really high on. Just say you give them the Titans, you give them a Jets game, and you give them
3. I have them at 3.
Yeah, give them another. Just pick one, and that's 3. So you would have to have 2 more to get to 5 to get
2
over.
more, yeah. So say I give them 3 just looking at the schedule, right? Like, that's all.
Yeah.
I max out at 3. They're at 4.5.
Be generous and give them the Seahawks too. There's 4.
Yeah, maybe. And then maybe, so this is where I wouldn't be surprised if Tua or Aaron Rodgers gets hurt and like they win a game off of an injury that they shouldn't have won, then that's where that 5 comes in. But right now, man, I got them under. I got them 3. 3 wins is as best as I could get for them. I'm sorry about it. It's a rebuild year. Completely blow it up, redo it, build it over again. Mayo will probably be out in 2 years. No, mark my word. If I called that just now, I'm calling it, and I'm the first one to call it. Well, I don't think Mayo will be there in 2 years.
I wouldn't be surprised. And before we move to the next team, I got to show you the graphic of them from last year. They haven't added a lot of talent, and this is what their stats were last year. Offensively, points per game, worst in the league. Yards per game, 30th. Pass yards, 28th. Rush yards, 26th. Sub 25th in all of the offensive categories. Defense, with Bill Belichick, points per game, 15th. Yards per game, 7th. Pass yards, 11th. Rush yards, 4th. Obviously, last year, Ryan, bad roster with Bill Belichick. They finished 4-13. So now you bring in Gerard Mayo, rookie quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, and a whole new team organization, but just as bad a roster, and you're going to win more games than Bill Belichick? I find that incredibly hard to believe. I'll be shocked if they win 5 or 6 games.
Well, we talked about the contract. We talked about the quarterback. Let's talk about the team in general. The Miami Dolphins, they are arguably the most talented, maybe the fastest roster in the entire NFL, and definitely the AFC East. If you just look at roster alone, this team should be atop the AFC East, right? Like if you just look position by position, you look at, yet Tua, right? You can argue whether or not you think Tua is a top 10 guy or not. But then you got Raheem Mostert, you got Tyreek Hill, you've got Jalen Waddle, you've got Odell Beckham, you've got Jonnu Smith, who the Patriots let go. But is this offense good enough to overcome 9.5 wins, which is where they open?
I don't think they are. I think the Dolphins are going to take a step back this year. I'm going under, not by much, but I'm sorry. The defense has a lot of holes in it. Like it does. They've had a lot of injuries. They have a really terrible salary cap situation. And another thing, they haven't really fixed the offensive line. Like we've got an issue at left guard. We've got an issue at right guard, just minimum. Tight end's not great. We don't know what's going to happen with the edge rushers because of the injuries. The linebacker situation doesn't excite me. The corner situation doesn't have a lot of depth at all because unless Ramsey comes out and plays fantastic, I'm not expecting that. I think
everybody knows you don't like Ramsey anyway.
Well, by the way, I was right. And I was saying and people were still saying he was the best in the league. I was like, hey, he's actually not. I was correct. Wrong about a lot of things. I was right about that one.
They did pick up Poyer, so that's a big move.
Okay, absolutely. Let me look at their stats from last year. Obviously, it was explosive. Second in points per game, first in yards per game, first in pass yards, 23rd in rush yards. Defense, a little more hit and miss. 22nd in points per game, 10th in yards, 15th in pass yards, 7th in rush yards. They finished 11-6 and lost the wildcard game to Kansas City. But last year, I think they were a better team. I think the roster was better last year because they lost some pieces. The salary cap isn't in the same situation. They're more limited here. So I don't think they're going to get to 11 wins like they did last year. I think they're in trouble.
Miami's in trouble.
I think a lot of people are going to be surprised. I don't think Miami's going to be exceptional. I think think the ceiling is 10 wins, but I think they win at 9 games. We can go through the schedule if you want in a minute. What do you think?
I swear on everything that if Miami is in trouble by the end of this year, I'm going back to this episode and we'll just replay it. Like the week that we're talking about Miami, we will just replay this episode again. Every sports commentator I've watched to prepare for this show, just to hear their takes on it, everybody has Miami going over. Like
really,
most every AFC East team goes over except the Patriots, and most people's predictions right now.
Well, all these teams can't go over.
I find it shocking that you think that the Dolphins are going to go under. Look, it's a tough schedule,
not by a lot,
and we know that Tua does not play well in cold weather. And if you look at the end of the year, he's got some places where he's going to have to play some cold weather games. Yep. So that is trouble, right? You can see trouble on the horizon. But I find it, again, hard to believe that Miami has, with Mike McDaniel being as good as he is, they haven't found a way to fix this. They haven't found a way to reinvent the wheel. I mean, look at what he did last year with the season that they had.
I think a lot of people are going to be more onto the whole cheat motion thing this year. Obviously, it was a big problem, but I think it's going to give teams another year to adapt. Now, he might add more wrinkles to it as well, obviously, but
right.
Continue.
And we know, so like Patrick Mahomes, right? People caught on to that at some point, and Mahomes had to learn a different way of playing.
Of course.
Well, I think McDaniel is as good as Mahomes is in head coaching world. I think he's one of the best coaches in the NFL.
Really?
I really do. Like he's just, his story, I mean, just coming pretty much from water boy to head coach, like it's a phenomenal story. It's a beautiful story. And I think that he is too edgy to let other teams come in there and have their will against them. I think he's going to find a way to counteract. He may run that scheme starting out like the first 6 weeks or something. If they start picking up on it or catching on it, then he'll change it up and he'll go, okay, well, time to move to plan B. Remember how I told you on the offseason that we're going to keep running plan A until plan A doesn't work, we'll move to plan B? I think that's what he's going to do. I think he's too smart to have not thought of what we're talking about here. Like 2 guys on the microphone, and McDaniel hadn't said, bet they're going to catch on to that. Like, he's going to fix
I
it.
understand.
And for you to say their roster is even worse than it was last year, I disagree completely with that. Maybe on the defensive side.
That's what I'm worried about.
I would still even say no because they added Poyer, and I think that's a huge help. And then Jalen Ramsey, we'll see what he does. I think he's going to have a decent season. He's not going to play like he did, 5 years ago. But the offense, man,
yeah, but Chubb got injured.
The offense is sure, but still, you have the depth at offense is also great, especially in the receiving room.
I understand. I'm not debating the fact that the offense is good. I don't think the offense is the question mark. Is Miami going to go and surprise people and put up a lot of yards and put up points? Yeah, more than likely. They still got Tyreek Hill. They still got all these pieces. I do think the offensive line's an issue, so I think they might take a step back offensively. I actually, matter of fact, because we showed the graphic, second, first, 23rd, they will take a step back offensively. I don't think they are going to lead the league in all these categories.
It's hard to maintain that status,
of course,
more than 1 year.
So
even Patrick Mahomes doesn't do that.
Exactly. So if I think they're going to take a minor step back on offense, and then I don't think the defense has gotten better, whereas last year it was 15 to 20 in these categories, that tells me I think the team overall is getting worse. I don't think.
But they won 11 games last year.
They did, but they won against a lot of bad teams. They struggled to beat good teams, and they got embarrassed against tough opponents that they faced. And let's go through their schedule, because this is one of the teams I want to talk about game by game, okay? So week 1, the Jaguars. I think they could win or lose that game.
Well, that's the only two options.
Oh, there are ties in the regular season, my
I'll tell
friend.
you what, people, they come into this show and they hear the most cutting edge.
This is why you tune in to Sports Love. Okay, Jaguars, win or lose.
Hey, I bet you they're going to do 1 or 2.
Yeah, probably. 50-50 shot. Okay, so they beat the Jags. They lose to the Bills.
Whoa, time out. Here is where I interject. And I was going to I'm going to save a little bit of this to talk about with the Bills that we'll talk about next. But the Bills have owned them. Don't think it's that way again this year. Just saying. Move on. You can give them the loss here all you want. Don't think it's going to happen, but go ahead.
Okay, so just looking. Jaguars, I think they win. Seahawks, I think they win. Titans, they win. Patriots, they win. Colts, I'm not certain, because
after a bye week, I think they win.
Possibly. Let's say they win that. They win Cardinals. Okay, we're at 6. I say they lose to Buffalo, lose to the Rams. They beat the Raiders. That's 7. They beat the Patriots. That's 8. Packers lose, Jets win, so that's 9, and then they probably lose against the 49ers, lose against the Browns, and then the Jets, they could win or lose if they split. So right there, that's 9 to 10. So I think best case scenario, we're right at 10.
Okay. All right. Well, the difference is the Bills. You think the Bills sweep them again, and I'll save that for next segment. But I see where you're coming from, and logically, it makes sense that if you think that the offense is going to take a step back, then likely they'll win less games, and you have them winning a game and a half less to be, well, actually 2 games less because they have to be under 9.5. So,
right.
I mean, but even you naming through these, you got to 9 pretty quick, and then you still had 4 games left. So,
yeah, those last games are tough though. You got 49ers, you got the Browns at Cleveland, you got New York in January or December. I'm not going to be surprised if the Dolphins win 10 or 11 games. I'm not going to go, what? But this is the whole point. It's predictions. It's fun. In my gut, I feel like they take a step back and they win. I think 9 games is the limit. Then they might miss the playoffs. It depends. I'm not sure yet.
I'm so glad that we have so many differences. I didn't think we would, but
I didn't either.
Every one of these we've really had a differing opinion on, except the Patriots, which everybody knows they're going to suck this year. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. My team, my favorite, the one over my right shoulder, actually. Those guys, the ones that always choke in the playoffs. You remember those guys? Yeah, okay, those. They're the favorite to win the division. They're plus 150 last time I checked before lunch today. They've won, by the way, at least 11 games the last 4 years.
Yeah.
But I also think this is the most talent-deficient team that the Bills have had since Josh Allen has been their quarterback.
Agreed.
This is the year where everything is going to be on his shoulders. There is no other option, Tristan. I've heard people say that, they lose Stephon Diggs, they lose Gabe Davis. Well, they can play. He can go and do what Patrick Mahomes did with Kansas City. When Kansas City was in their quote-unquote rebuild, they wound up winning a Super Bowl. That doesn't happen usually, okay? That is the 1 in a million. That is the 1 out of 99. Josh Allen, we know how he plays when the game's on his shoulders. During the regular season, he's great. When it comes to playoff time, he chokes. He can't do it.
I disagree. He's great. He's always great. It's the team around him that always kind of falters and fails him.
Let me take a step back. The Bills overall choke in the playoffs. Whether it's Josh Allen, whether it's the team, whether it's Sean McDermott, I don't know. That's just what always happens. I find it weird that I'm arguing against the Bills here. It's the pain. It's the pain coming out. This is my way of crying, okay? Look, I know the Bills are the favorite to win the division, and I surely hope they do. I don't think they will. I think that, last segment I told you I was going to save the part of the Miami conversation here. What happened last year, the Dolphins and the Bills, they finished even. They were both 11-7, right? Or 11-6,
yeah.
11-6. And so my
Buffalo
math wasn't
won.
mathing.
Yeah.
But Buffalo won both games. They swept Miami. I don't think that happens this year. I'm not saying Miami sweeps Buffalo, but they do not win. Buffalo does not win 2 games against Miami this year. It doesn't happen. Mike McDaniel's not going to let that happen, and I don't think that Buffalo has the talent there to match up with Miami and win and sweep both of those games. I know when Buffalo plays Miami, it always seems like it's Aaron Rodgers at Green Bay playing Chicago. That's how it seems. I'm telling you, it changes this year. Mark my words. And I think that's the difference that pulls the Bills under. I have them winning 10 games this year.
You think they're going to make the playoffs?
As a wild card, I don't know, man. Okay, do you want my honest opinion?
Yeah.
Because you asked me. No, I don't think they make the playoffs. I don't even think they make a wild card. Here's the reason why. I think Buffalo is in a secret rebuild mode right now.
Yeah, they are.
And I think Sean McDermott needs to be gone. I don't think that Buffalo can rebuild on Sean McDermott's foundation. I think that the AFC in general is too stacked for them to hope for a wild card win. Even with 10 wins, I think it's going to be hard for them to get in because when we finish the gauntlet of the AFC, in 4 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now, we're going to talk about some teams that lots of them have the possibility of winning the Super Bowl. And so I don't think at 10 wins, Buffalo maybe has the chance of going, and they may even get less than 10 wins, Tristan. I'm really worried about the Buffalo Bills here because they haven't done much this offseason at all. They've lost big pieces in the offense. They've lost big pieces in the defense with Jordan Poyer and others.
They had to. They had to address the cap. They were
correct, but they haven't supplemented.
No.
So when you don't supplement a muscle, it gets weak, and I'm telling you, it's going to be a rough year for the Bills. And this is me just being negative, so I don't have to suffer the consequence of being on a high for the Bills like I usually am. And then the letdown isn't so bad when you're already prepared for a bad outcome, right?
I understand where you're coming from to an extent because I was there last year.
You're about to tell me they're winning 11 games.
I was there last year. I doubted Josh Allen. I doubted Buffalo. I said they weren't going to make the playoffs. It was looking really, really good for a while. And then somehow, some way, he does it. Joe Brady became the offensive coordinator. They started using the run game more, actually utilizing James Cook. I don't think losing Stephon Diggs is a big deal. I think, if anything, he was a liability at the end. Sure. I mean, he hardly caught the ball. We look at their stats last year. Here we go. Points per game, 6th. Yards per game, 4th. Pass yards, 8th. Rush yards, 7th. Defense, 4th, 9th, 7th, 15th. I mean, they're top 10 in almost every single category. We know the defense will perform well, even with the depleted roster, because McDermott is a great defensive coordinator. I think the offense is going to run the hell out of the football. I think Joe Brady will have them way more balanced and focus on the run game and build the offense out of that. They brought in Keon Coleman through the draft. I thought they drafted pretty dang well. There is no way I'm picking against this team while Josh Allen's the quarterback because I made that mistake last year. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl. That's not going to happen. It is kind of a rebuild year because they had to address it. But even with that said, when you have this quarterback who is so used to putting the team on his shoulders and carrying them to the playoffs, and even in his worst year, taking Kansas City down to the wire, I don't expect anything different. I'm taking the over. I think they're going to win 11 games because they do it every single year.
I am very happy for you. I cannot share that same high with you because I've been let down. So just like how you were let down because you picked against them, I've picked for them and been let down so many times.
I mean, they lost the divisional game. That's a good run.
I still think they'll win 10 games. But I think the difference is them losing one of those Miami games. That's really all it is. And also, it's Kansas City's year to win. I know that the Bills have, I think, beat Kansas City in the regular season 2 years in a row.
I believe
if I'm
so,
not mistaken. I think this is Kansas City's year to win. And you also can't tell me that Kansas City isn't even a better team than they were last year.
On paper, maybe.
Yeah, they should be. The Bills are a worse team. And so, by your prediction, you have the Bills winning the AFC East.
Yes, I do. I think they win the division.
It's very rare that I predict anything that comes true, but every now and then I have one. I usually get one good prediction right. What was it last year that I called? You were like, "Oh my gosh, you called that!"
You were talking about Hollywood Brown going to the Chiefs.
Hollywood Brown, yeah. And okay, so there's
like
my
October.
one good prediction. Yeah, there's my one good prediction. My good prediction for this year: the Jets beat out the Bills in the AFC East.
Okay, I would be shocked.
Predicated on a healthy Aaron Rodgers. I get that. So if that's wrong, my whole prediction is out the window.
But that's part of the pick because I don't think he's going to be. If you're saying that means you think he's going to be healthy.
Right. It's predicated on him being healthy, right? And so if he's not, then my whole prediction just fails.
But that's my prediction's predicated on him not playing 17 games.
Sure.
So
yeah, dude, I'm telling you, I'm looking at the schedule and I look at the roster for the Bills. It's bad. Like I know a lot of people they're praising Josh Allen and praising him, and I know he's one of the best. He's one of the top 3 guys and top 4 guys in the league. But I just don't see him carrying this team.
Schedule is really hard.
It's very hard. It was ranked in, I think, the top 12 hardest schedules of the year.
Cardinals, Dolphins, Jaguars, Ravens, Texans, Jets, Titans, Seahawks, Dolphins, Colts, Chiefs, 49ers, Rams, Lions, Patriots, Jets, Patriots. So you end at Patriots, Jets, Patriots. But that run right there, listen to this run. Dolphins, Colts, Chiefs, 49ers, Rams, Lions. Woo, that's a tough stretch. You got to buy in there, but it's not going to be easy.
I just find it funny that, and I guess the difference is the quarterbacks with Tua and Josh Allen, but you said that Miami is going to take a step back offensively. Do you not think the Bills take any step back offensively at all?
I think statistically, if you look at the numbers, yes, but I think they're going to be...
You don't talk about the wins then.
But I think they're going to be a more balanced team because last year Joe Brady took over halfway through the season, and that's when the offense really started looking good and running the football. I think they're going to be a more ground and pound play action football, and I think they're going to control the clock and try to play low scoring games and be in close games in the fourth quarter and get Josh Allen to go win it. I think that's the formula, and I think he'll do it.
That's where he plays best. When it's fourth quarter and he has to go win it, he will.
Yes.
4th and 12, he'll run it and get 28 yards.
Right.
But you also said that they should ground and pound it. I agree with you. I agree with you so much. That's what they need to do. But they never stick to the status quo.
But they did when Brady took over. Like, Brady did run the football. I mean, even the Chiefs game, they were winning the Chiefs game running the football.
Sometimes. But when I feel like it's just, we talk about it all the time when we play Madden football, right? Like when you get down 3 scores, you want to just start airing the ball out instead of sticking to the ground and pound because it's only the midway through third quarter. You still got time, right. But your mind just says, hey, we got to go put points on the board.
Air it out, yeah.
And we got to get those big chunk plays. And that's what the Bills do. They put it on Josh Allen's shoulders too early, I think, is what they jumped the gun on it. They say, hey, go win this game. But, Coach, it's only 3 minutes into the third quarter. Don't care. 50-yard pass to Gabe Davis. Let's go. And that's just, Gabe Davis isn't there anymore. So what do?
I understand.
Like, this receiving core is, and maybe, what's his name? Keon Coleman? Is that right?
Keon Coleman, he's the rookie. Yeah.
Maybe he comes out, and I've seen, some of his plays in the offseason, and they look pretty good.
Yes.
But, I mean, he's not Tyreek Hill 2.0.
But you still got Curtis Samuel. You've got Khalil Shakir. You've got Dalton Kincaid. I assume Dawson Knox is still there. I think they're going to be okay. The only questions are still the offensive line. They're a question every year, though. I'm done even talking about that. The defense is not great. It's not. So I am worried about the defense. And if the defense is bad, genuinely bad, then yeah, they probably won't win 11 games. But I just feel like Sean McDermott's going to find a way to average things out.
The Bills opened up at 11.5.
Mm-hmm.
Vegas dropped to 10.5.
That's because all the money was coming in on the under 11.5.
I'm right there with them.
Well, when it was 11.5, that's a different story. I might take the under.
I'm still with them on the under. Like, we're just going to keep blowing the under here because I'm telling you, I just don't see it.
Huh.
I hope, again, look, I got the banner flying high over my right shoulder. I hope that the Bills win the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah.
But I also have to come to grips with reality and say it's not in their cards this year. I just don't think it is. And
maybe not.
Even with that, I don't think 11 wins is either. That's why I have to take the under. Even if they get 10 wins, I'm right, and I think they go 10-7. That's my prediction. So that's what I think about the Bills. That's what I think about the AFC East.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. We'll see what happens. A lot of disagreements, but it'll be fun to follow it. Ultimately, we will find a way for both of us to be wrong somehow.
We always do. Tristan, it's a fun first week back with you since we've taken most of July off, had some R&R. We're ready to get back at it, nose to the grindstone now. It's full-fledged football for the rest of the year, baby. I'm so excited. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining the Sports Buff family. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on any social media, any podcast platforms that you have. We'll be back next week with another AFC breakdown, another division we'll go through, tell you our over-unders that aren't going to be right. But hey, if you want to take them to the bank, be our guest. Thank you for tuning in. We love you guys.
Yeah. See you guys later. Appreciate everything you do. Goodbye.